When a power outage traps a billionaire CEO overnight in her own skyscraper, she expects inconvenience, not destiny. But when Evelyn Grant discovers that the quiet janitor's little daughter looks exactly like her long-lost sister, buried secrets explode into the light. A single night of darkness uncovers a lifetime of lies, forbidden love, hidden bloodlines, and a child who might be the rightful heir to a billion-dollar empire. Torn between power and family, Evelyn must decide, protect her company's legacy, or the little girl who carries her sister's soul. Betrayal, truth, and redemption collide in this emotional, high-stakes drama, where every secret has a price, and every heart hides a story. The night the lights went out in Grant Tower, the city outside still glittered like 1,000 restless stars. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the 63rd floor as Evelyn Grant, CEO of Grant Enterprises, stood alone in her office, a kingdom of chrome and silence. She was known as the Ice Queen of Wall Street, a woman who built empires with her mind and destroyed opponents with a single signature. But even Evelyn couldn't control a power outage. The lights flickered once, twice, and then the entire skyscraper plunged into darkness. For a moment, the world stood still, except for the faint hum of thunder and the red emergency lights bleeding into the glass. Evelyn sighed, more annoyed than afraid, and reached for her phone. Her heels clicked sharply as she walked toward the elevator hall, the flashlight from her phone cutting through the shadows. The sound of something soft, maybe a whimper, stopped her mid-step. She turned. "Is someone here?" Her voice echoed faintly through the hallway. Then from behind a cleaning cart, a man's voice replied, steady but apologetic, "Sorry, ma'am. Didn't mean to startle you." The light caught his face, a man in his early 40s with work-worn hands and tired brown eyes. He wore a janitor's uniform, soaked slightly from the storm. Beside him stood a little girl, clutching a small stuffed bunny. Evelyn frowned. "You brought your child here?" she asked sharply. "Yes, ma'am," he said quietly, his voice edged with embarrassment. "Couldn't find a sitter tonight. The storm knocked out power in our neighborhood, too. I didn't want to leave her alone." Evelyn exhaled through her nose, half irritation, half something else. She was used to professionalism, not sentiment. But when the little girl peeked out from behind her father's leg, Evelyn's heart paused. The flashlight caught the child's face. Soft curls, bright blue eyes, a faint birthmark under the right eye. Evelyn froze. She hadn't seen that mark in over 20 years, not since her sister Clara was alive. The girl smiled shyly. "Aye," she said, holding her bunny tighter. Evelyn's throat tightened unexpectedly. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "Lily," the little girl said, glancing up at her father. "Daddy says I'm named after Mommy's favorite flower." Thunder rolled through the sky. Evelyn turned away, trying to compose herself. The storm outside matched the one beginning inside her. A strange sense of recognition, a memory that refused to stay buried. She invited them both to wait in her office until the elevators were restored. As Noah and Lily stepped inside, Evelyn couldn't stop glancing at the girl's face. The more she looked, the stronger the resemblance became. The same spark in the eyes, the same dimpled smile. While the rain poured endlessly outside, Evelyn found herself sitting in silence across from the janitor and his daughter, wondering why fate had locked them all inside her empire that night. Somewhere in the hum of the generator and the soft sound of a child's laughter, a truth was beginning to awaken, one that would change all their lives forever. Morning came hesitantly, as if unsure whether it was welcome in the storm-washed city. Pale sunlight seeped through the glass walls of Evelyn Grant's office, painting long golden streaks across the polished floor. The skyscraper was still quiet, the hum of the generators, the only sound besides the soft breathing of the two unexpected guests she had allowed to stay the night. On the leather couch near the window, little Lily lay curled up beneath a company blanket, her stuffed bunny pressed against her chest. Her father, Noah, sat nearby, head bowed in sleep, exhaustion etched deep into his features. Evelyn stood by the window, coffee in hand, staring at the reflection of the three of them together. It was a picture she couldn't understand and couldn't look away from, The night's events replayed endlessly in her mind. The sudden blackout, the girl's face in the glow of her phone light, that unmistakable birthmark. For years, Evelyn had buried the grief of losing her sister Clara, who vanished after falling in love with a man their powerful father disapproved of. The family called it a scandal. The tabloids called it a betrayal. Evelyn called it a tragedy. She hadn't seen Clara since that day, until now, when echoes of her sister seemed to have walked right back into her life wearing a pink hoodie and a smile. When Lily stirred awake, she rubbed her eyes and looked up at Evelyn. "Are you the boss of this whole building?" she asked with innocent wonder. Evelyn blinked, caught off guard by the child's candor. "Something like that," she replied softly, sitting down beside her. Lily giggled, swinging her small legs. "Daddy says bosses don't smile much." "But you smiled last night," Evelyn almost laughed. "Did I?" Noah woke soon after, immediately apologizing for the intrusion. "I'll take her home as soon as the elevators are back," he said, voice humble, eyes avoiding hers. "Don't," Evelyn interrupted, surprising even herself. "The storm's not cleared yet. It's safer here for now." Her tone was calm, professional, but her thoughts were anything but. She found herself watching Lily again as the girl began drawing on a scrap of printer paper, her small fingers smudged with colored pencil. Evelyn leaned over the desk, fascinated. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, a tall woman in a dress, a man with messy hair, and a little girl holding a bunny. Above them, in shaky letters, Lily had written, "Me, Daddy and Auntie Clara." Evelyn's hand trembled slightly. "Who told you about Auntie Clara?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lily shrugged. "There's a photo in Daddy's box at home. She looks like you." The words pierced through Evelyn like lightning. She looked at Noah, and for a fleeting moment she saw guilt flicker across his eyes. Before she could speak again, the building's power came fully back, the lights humming to life. Yet for Evelyn, something far more powerful had just switched on inside her, an instinct, a suspicion, and a fragile hope she didn't yet dare to name. As she watched Noah pack Lily's things, Evelyn's gaze lingered on the child's face, a face that felt like family, like memory, like destiny. And for the first time in years, the Ice Queen of Wall Street felt the warmth of something long forgotten. Love, and the dangerous promise of truth. The storm had passed, but inside Evelyn Grant's mind, thunder still echoed. 2 days had gone by since the blackout, yet she couldn't stop thinking about the janitor and his little girl. She told herself it was ridiculous, a billionaire CEO with better things to do than dwell on a child's face. But each time she tried to focus on her work, the image of Lily's blue eyes and that familiar birthmark haunted her like a ghost. It wasn't just resemblance, it was memory breathing again. Evelyn had lost her sister Clara 20 years ago, and in one night, everything she buried had clawed its way back to the surface. Sitting alone in her penthouse office that evening, Evelyn stared at her laptop screen, the city lights reflecting against her glass desk. She hesitated, then opened the company's archived employment records, a system that only the CEO could access. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she typed the name Noah Miller. Dozens of results appeared, but one caught her attention immediately. Noah Reynolds, a former employee of a Grant Enterprises subsidiary, terminated 19 years ago. Attached to the file was an emergency contact name, Clara Grant. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook as she opened the old personnel photo. There he was, Noah, younger, smiling, standing beside a woman Evelyn would have recognized anywhere. Clara, radiant and alive, holding a baby in her arms. Evelyn pressed a trembling hand over her mouth as tears pricked her eyes. She hadn't cried in years. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as fragments of the past replayed. Clara's laughter, her rebellion, her desperate love for a man their father called beneath the family name. Evelyn had believed Clara ran away and never looked back, but what if she'd been hiding in plain sight all along? Determined to know the truth, Evelyn summoned Noah to her office the next morning. When he arrived, his expression was wary but calm, his hands rough from years of work. "You used to know my sister," she said without preamble, her voice low but steady. Noah froze. "Clara," she continued, "you loved her, didn't you?" He looked down, his silence confirming everything. "We met when I was working in logistics," he finally said. "Your father found out. He threatened me, threatened her. She begged me to disappear so she could protect the baby." Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears. "The baby?" she whispered. Noah's voice broke. "Lily isn't mine by blood, Miss Grant. She's Clara's daughter." For a long moment, Evelyn said nothing. The room seemed to tilt. Clara's child, alive here, laughing in her building, the true heir to the Grant fortune. A surge of emotions she couldn't name filled her chest. Anger, guilt, relief, and something deeper, a fierce protectiveness she hadn't known she was capable of. Outside, rain began again, tapping softly against the windows like the heartbeat of fate. Evelyn looked at Noah, and for the first time her voice trembled. "Then she's family," she said quietly. "And I will protect her, just as Clara would have wanted." That night, Evelyn stood by the window, gazing down at the glowing city. Somewhere below, a child slept, unaware that the truth of her bloodline had just shaken the foundation of an empire. Morning sunlight spilled across the skyline, painting the steel and glass towers in gold. Evelyn Grant stood before the vast windows of her office, her reflection merging with the city she had ruled for a decade. Yet for the first time in her life, she didn't feel powerful. She felt conflicted. The revelation that Lily was her late sister Clara's child had shattered the marble armor she'd built around her heart. Everything she had, the company, the wealth, the name, no longer felt like her own. In truth, it belonged to that little girl with blue eyes and a bunny clutched in her arms. Evelyn had spent her entire life protecting the Grant legacy, but now she was beginning to wonder if she had been protecting a lie. All morning, the board of directors buzzed with tension. Grant Enterprises was preparing for its annual shareholders' meeting, a gathering where billions in assets and control would be reaffirmed. Yet Evelyn's mind wasn't on numbers or power. It was on family. She sat behind her mahogany desk, staring at the folder she'd pulled from the archives. Clara Grant, Termination of Inheritance. Her father's signature sat at the bottom, bold and final. The very moment he had cut Clara out of the family had also erased Lily's rightful place. Evelyn clenched her fists. The old man was gone, but his cruelty still echoed through the walls of his empire. Later that afternoon, she found herself in the company's private garden on the roof, the only place in the building untouched by corporate ambition. There she saw Noah waiting for her, his uniform dusty, his eyes humble but steady. Beside him, Lily chased butterflies between the flower beds, laughter spilling into the wind. Evelyn's heart tightened. "You've kept her safe all this time," she said quietly. Clara would have been proud. Noah smiled faintly. "I just did what she asked, to keep her away from this world." Evelyn turned to face him fully. "She deserves to be known," she said firmly. "She deserves everything that was stolen from her." Noah's brow furrowed. "You mean, tell the world who she is?" Evelyn nodded. "She's a Grant, and she's going to inherit this company." That night, in her penthouse, Evelyn drafted new legal documents. Line by line, she began transferring shares, rewriting her will, and setting up a trust fund in Lily's name. Every keystroke felt like redemption, as if she were rewriting not only the company's future, but her family's history. Still, fear lingered. The board would fight her decision. The media would devour it. But Evelyn had already made up her mind. For once, her purpose wasn't driven by profit or pride, it was by love. As midnight approached, she walked to her window once more. The city lights blinked below like scattered stars, and in their glow she saw a reflection, not of the ice queen she had become, but of her sister's warmth and the innocent child who carried her spirit. "You'll never be forgotten again, Clara," she whispered to the night. In that quiet moment, Evelyn Grant, the ruthless CEO, was no longer protecting a company. She was protecting her bloodline, and though she didn't yet know it, forces within her empire were already preparing to destroy her for it. The morning of the shareholders' meeting dawned sharp and cold, as if the city itself knew something monumental was about to unfold. Evelyn Grant stood before her mirror, fastening the last button on her white blazer. Her reflection was flawless, calm, controlled, commanding, but beneath that composure pulsed a storm of nerves. Today, she would reveal the truth. Today, she would name Lily Miller, the daughter of her late sister Clara, as the rightful heir to Grant Enterprises. It was a decision that would either redeem her family or destroy everything she'd built. The boardroom on the top floor gleamed like a temple of power. Long glass table, gold-etched company seal, and rows of men and women whose loyalty was bought, not earned. Cameras were already being set up for the live-streamed press announcement. Whispers rippled through the crowd as Evelyn entered. She moved with the poise of a queen walking toward her throne, every step measured, every eye upon her. Behind her, Noah waited near the doorway, holding Lily's small hand. The little girl, dressed in a pale blue dress, clutched her bunny and looked around curiously, unaware that the world was about to learn her name. Evelyn began her speech with steady grace. "For years," she said, "Grant Enterprises has stood for integrity, innovation, and family. But one name, one legacy, was erased from our history unjustly." A murmur swept through the board. "Today I intend to correct that." She glanced at Lily, then back to the audience. "This child," she continued, her voice firm yet soft, "is Lily Clara Miller, the daughter of my late sister Clara Grant. She is the true heir to the Grant legacy." The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the explosion. Angry voices, disbelief, the click of cameras. Reporters swarmed, and board members rose to their feet demanding explanations. "This is outrageous," spoke Mr. Hale, the company's CFO, his eyes glinting with venom. "You're fabricating a story for sympathy. You think you can hand this empire to a janitor's child?" He waved a stack of papers in the air. "These are birth records and forged, manipulated by the CEO herself." Evelyn's heart pounded. "You're lying," she said coldly. But Hale only smirked. "The evidence says otherwise." Within seconds, police officers entered the room, flashing badges. The cameras turned on her now, the mighty Evelyn Grant, accused of fraud. As they approached, Noah stepped forward, voice breaking but resolute. "Stop! She's telling the truth." He held up a folder, Clara's letter written in her hand, along with DNA proof. "This is Clara's child, her daughter. You erased them both once, not again." The room froze. Every camera turned to the documents in Noah's trembling hands. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. The truth, undeniable, heartbreaking, had finally surfaced. Reporters shouted, flashes blinded her, and in the chaos, Evelyn's world fractured. She wasn't being arrested for corruption. She was being crucified for love and truth. But even as the walls of her empire crumbled, she caught a glimpse of Lily in the crowd, small, frightened, clutching her bunny, and Evelyn smiled faintly through the chaos, because in that moment she realized something her father never did. Empires fall, but blood, family, endures. And no matter what happened next, she would rather lose everything than let her niece lose her name again. The weeks that followed were a blur of headlines, lawsuits, and silence. Evelyn Grant, once the face of power and perfection, had become the most talked about woman in the city. And not for her empire, but for its fall. Her arrest had been broadcast live, her reputation torn apart in the court of public opinion. The board expelled her, shareholders abandoned her, and the world that once worshipped her name now whispered it with pity. Yet beneath the ashes of humiliation, something unexpected grew. Peace. For the first time in years, Evelyn wasn't waking up to stock reports or endless meetings. She woke to the sound of waves. Her seaside cottage far from the city was small but alive with light. Every morning, the sun spilled through lace curtains, and the ocean whispered against the rocks outside. She traded boardrooms for quiet breakfasts, designer heels for bare feet. The papers still called her the fallen CEO, but she no longer cared. She had lost everything that didn't matter, and found everything that did. On her coffee table rested a single framed photo, Lily smiling in the garden, and beside her Noah, his arm protectively around her shoulders. Evelyn traced the frame with her fingers, smiling softly. They hadn't visited since the chaos, and part of her wondered if they ever would. That afternoon, as the tide rolled in, a gentle knock came at the door. Evelyn opened it, and for a moment time stopped. Noah stood there, rain-soaked and hesitant, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. Beside him, Lily peeked out from under her hood, clutching her old stuffed bunny. "We didn't mean to intrude," Noah began, his voice rough. "But someone wanted to see her Aunt Evie." Before Evelyn could speak, Lily ran forward and threw her arms around her waist. "I missed you," she squealed. Evelyn knelt, hugging her tightly, tears springing to her eyes. "I missed you too, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling. The three of them spent the day together, walking along the beach, collecting shells, laughing at the waves that splashed too high. For a child, it was just another happy afternoon. But for Evelyn, it was something sacred, the rebirth of family. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in fire and gold, Lily sat between them, drawing shapes in the sand. "Daddy says the world can be mean," she said thoughtfully, "but I think it's nice sometimes too." Evelyn smiled at Noah. "She gets her wisdom from her mother," he said softly. Evelyn looked at the horizon. "And her heart," she added, "from both of you." When evening came, Noah handed Evelyn an envelope, thick, embossed, and stamped with the Grant Enterprises seal. "I thought you should see this," he said. Inside were documents declaring a new trust, the Lily Clara Foundation, established by an anonymous investor. Evelyn's eyes filled with quiet awe. "You did this?" she asked. Noah shook his head. "Someone else believes in her future," he replied. "Maybe your father's legacy isn't dead. Maybe it's finally right." As the sun dipped into the sea, Evelyn took Lily's small hand in hers and smiled. A real, unguarded smile. "Then let's build it together," she said. The waves whispered against the shore, carrying away the last traces of bitterness, leaving behind only love. And there, beneath the glowing sky, three souls, once broken by loss and lies, stood reborn as a family, proof that even from ruin, something pure can rise again. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Drew Daily Stories, where every tale is filled with love, mystery, and unforgettable twists. New stories every day, only on Drew Daily Stories.